Welcome to EduPlanet's 10-Minute Tuesdays, a series of conversations with experts in education. We will be speaking with authors of our PLUS learning pathways to provide educators with actionable information in bite-sized pieces. My name is Claire Coop-Scott, and I'm with the content team at EduPlanet 21. Today, I am joined once again by Bena Kallic, co-director of the Institute for Habits of Mind and chief strategic advisor at EduPlanet 21. Bena provides services to school districts, state departments of education, professional organizations, and public agencies throughout the U.S. and abroad. She has co-authored several books with topics that include habits of mind, assessment, and personalized learning. Bena, it's great to be back with you.
Thank you. Good to be back with you too.
So we have had a couple of conversations so far. One, we've kind of done a general overview of habits of mind, and we have also had a conversation about the elementary classroom. So let's shift and talk about habits of mind in the secondary classroom. So talk a little bit about how habits of mind may look a little bit different and how they are applied differently in the secondary setting than they might be in an elementary setting.
Well, certainly we know that when we get to adolescence, we're really talking about a whole different kettle of fish. And that it's really different in the sense that these kids need the habits desperately. And of course, if they've been in a system from K-12 where the habits have been adopted, then it's much easier because they already have familiarity, they already are seeing some trends of their growth, and they already have a better sense of what the benefit is. But let's say that they don't, they haven't been in that system. Then it's really introducing them. So here are some things that some people have done just to give the basic introduction. For example, in Berlin, Connecticut, what they did was in the middle school, they decided that what they were going to do was the media center was going to take ownership of it. And the teacher there said she was going to have the kids develop media presentations. So what they did was they each developed in classes with different distribution. I'm not sure how she managed it all, but different kids coming into the 6th grade middle school had an assignment in which they were supposed to be exploring different ones of the habits. So let's imagine a class, and they distributed them so that the 16 habits were distributed. And then they were to figure out a media presentation on behalf of the habits. And although all the classes did this, there were so many variations on the theme that it was very, very powerful. As a result, what they did was they had a whole lot of nice multimedia presentations, and they did an assembly where they all voted and chose the ones that they thought were best. They had a small committee, chose the ones they thought were best, so that they introduced each of the 16 habits with the media presentation. So that's just one variation. Another is that sometimes they decide by department. A high school I'm working with said, we know because of NGSS science that one of the ones we're most concerned with is questioning and posing problems. But questioning and posing problems also requires listening with understanding and empathy. And in addition to that, we also recognize that students will have to be thinking flexibly as they imagine where their questions are going to lead them. So they kind of did a cluster of them and said, our science department is going to make certain that we're going to be paying attention to those habits.
So something I think that we frequently hear from secondary teachers is the stress of getting through their curriculum or getting through their content, preparing students for standardized tests, or just getting through what they need to so students are prepared for the next grade level or the next course. How do you talk with secondary teachers about this is not adding one more thing to teach, this is helping students to be successful in the other pieces of what you're teaching?
You know, it's really funny, but one of the quotations that Art and I, in our writing that we wrote, got pulled out and became almost a slogan in a lot of places. And it was, in addition to preparing kids for the tests, we need to also prepare them for the tests of life. And I think that that's what we're really talking about. Test prep isn't going to really help them to be innovative, to be problem solvers, to be more self-directed, to be more independent in their thinking. So to think that all we have to do is take our content and kill it to death is not always the best solution. Whereas when we use the habits of mind in association and integrated with the content that we teach, we find that we're now helping the students say, not only do I need to know, for example, why this is important, but I also need to put my thinking hat on and say, and what other alternative perspectives might be equally important? In other words, if I'm in social studies, am I thinking about points of view? And how do I begin to see a culture from the perspective of more than one point of view? If I'm in English literature and I'm now trying to understand something like, for example, how am I understanding this language? I remember one student who said, I'm enjoying this Shakespeare thing, but they use awful funny language. And so, that idea that they're thinking that they're trying to give meaning to something gets them to be paying attention to, what does it really mean to be thinking and communicating with clarity and precision? Perhaps we need to understand the metaphors differently. We can begin to get our students to pay attention to which habit will help us most in order to study this and learn this in the most effective and deepest way.
So one of the things you talked about was that, when habits of mind are introduced at the elementary level, they kind of naturally make their way up, through middle school and then high school. What happens if a district is introducing it for the first time at the middle school or high school level? What are some simple things a teacher could do and implement in their classroom as they're trying to learn themselves about habits of mind? What are some things that they could do with their students?
Well, I think the first, I love what that media center did, because the media center seems like a nice location for it to introduce all the habits and create the landscape of it. So that's one possibility. Another is like NGSS science, let the science department kind of choose a few and say what they can do. I think also it's just, it's really interesting to me that we're all concerned because what doesn't come up from the elementary school, then we have to think about the first introduction at middle school or high school. And then also from the high school, can we work backwards and say, why aren't we doing this more systematically and systemically? And I think that the idea is to just get started altogether. So it's as simple as just saying, if this is what frustrates you, if you see that your students are really not doing the kinds of work that you want them to do because they're not willing to be open to the challenges of the work, look at the 16 habits and decide which of these can I really promote instructionally in the classroom to get them to say, we're going to work on this year, and we're going to see how we grow with it. Are we getting any better at it? To me, that's a very simplistic way of saying, just get started.
Are there any suggestions you have for teachers who want to learn more about habits of mind and start working towards it, even if their district might not be looking at it as a whole?
Yeah, I think definitely even individual teachers, and many are really saying, I can't wait for the district to get it together, or my school, or my team. I know what my kids need, and I'm just going to do this because I believe in it. And I would say that the online learning that EduPlanet offers gives you the opportunity to work both individually online or to join a cohort and develop thinking with a global community, because this is an international movement right now, so that you can, as an individual, find companionability and more interest if you get into the online learning. And it may grow as a contagion in your school. Also, reading the article that Art and I wrote is probably one of the shortcut ways to find out what are the habits, what are they about, how did we describe them, and how can we begin to think about them in our classrooms. So I would say that both of those could work very well.
Great, and we will certainly make those 2 items available to folks who are watching this. Are there any other examples or anything I forgot to ask you about today that you'd want to share with our audience, specifically related to the habits and the secondary classroom?
Maybe one thing that I can say is on our website, and I'm sure that you can also say the website for us, it's habitsofmindinstitute.org. If you go to the blogs, you're going to see that there are a couple of people at the secondary level who have written blogs. And one in particular I would bring your attention to which is Dan Volrath, who is a middle school special needs teacher who has now done a remarkable job with his students. And so he details what he does and how he thinks about that in a blog series on that website. So I guess I would say for especially people who are interested in trying to learn more about it, if you go to the resources and you go to the blogs that are on our website, there's lots of things that you can see that'll help you to feel inspired, hopefully.
Okay. Terrific. Well, Bena, thanks for joining me again today. I always enjoy our conversations.
Thank you. Same to you.